Hello, welcome to Box to Board. Now, a few weeks ago we had a sort of first cursory look at this. It was the electronic version that we looked at through that come through the pre-order and PDF, and just a sort of first glance at it. Tonight what we're going to do is look at the actual book. The book's arrived, and have a good sort of gander at it. So the first thing to note is it's good quality, as you would expect. It's fairly thin. I mean, it's not an incredibly thick book, but it is lovely. So we have in here, basically what I'm going to do is go through a bit more depth and detail. Haven't had a few weeks to digest this. The first thing it does is it's got all the normal sort of stuff I've come to expect with Star Trek adventures, in that it looks like L cars. It's well presented. They go through quite a lot about how you can adapt it for the different eras and the content. Now, in terms of content, there is a lot of content here, and it fills in a lot of gaps and references and there's quite a lot of bits about Star Trek planets in here. So what you've got is you've got a bit about briefing from Miranda about the Beta Quadrant itself. You've got the United Federation of Planets covered, and tells you a lot of the history of it. So where it is, how it was founded, what its political structure is, which I find quite interesting. The different departments, what Starfleet, how Starfleet works. Lots of it's communicated by these little transmissions from different organisations, some of which are Starfleet, some of which aren't. Bit about the culture of the Federation, a bit about how the economy works, which is only tiny because it kind of is a bit utopian and weird. Then a bit about the science and technology, quite a lot about colonies and free traders and cargo ships and medical technology, how that all works. And then we get into kind of the main meat of this, I suppose, in many respects, which is Federation worlds, and it goes through the different bits about some of the planets. So, for instance, we've got a lot about Andoria, which is really nice actually, and it's good. It's good background to have. You've got about 4 pages in Andoria, and how it works, and what it's like. Then three pages. Then it goes to Benzor. Bit about it. Then goes Earth, which is got loads about Earth, and some of the history of it, and quite a lot going on there, and what's happening in it. Vulcan's obviously going to be mentioned because Vulcan is a big deal. And actually, then we go to, there's more about Vulcan than Earth by the look of it. Yep. Then with some other planets like Risa and Nausicaa and Coridan. Some of the choices, I have to admit, I'm sitting going, I'm not quite sure why they picked that one, or what the logic has been, but they're interesting, and it adds depth and flavour. The Klingons, we get quite a lot about the Klingon Empire, so we get and all kinds of things like songs and bits and pieces, and some of the history, some of the political structures. The military obviously is going to feature, the culture is going to feature quite a lot about the culture. Science and technology, how their science and tech works. The Klingons have been really well developed in Star Trek over the years, so there's lots in there. In terms of the worlds, we've got Kronos, and then we get a few other ones: Boreth, Kitmer, Narenda, Rura, Penthe, and Tigokor. My Klingon isn't very good. And there's quite a bit about these different planets, which is quite nice. The one I find really interesting, because they're probably one of my favourite races, is the Romulans. So there's quite a lot of the Romulan history in here. It's nice to see it written down in one place that you can actually read it. There's a bit about what they're like, a bit about what they're like in terms of their history and how that's influenced them, and then where they are, and then this idea of a history of deceit, and it comes in over and over again. This, how that runs through as a theme. Political background. You've got the whole thing about Empire of Intrigue and quite a lot about, you know, different bits and pieces that how it all works together. Then there's quite a sizable chunk with Tal Shiar, which I find quite helpful. A bit about the military and the culture, and then it gets into science and tech. So the structure is very similar. Going into Romulan worlds, then Romulus and Remus obviously are the two major features. Those are the two we know most about. And the Romulans, actually, I think it illustrates really well what this book's useful for. It's great if you're a GM and you just want to read up a bit about the world, a bit about the flavour, and drop in things. Because, you know, Star Trek is such a rich universe that you can drop stuff into. And I was really impressed with, you know, I think for GM this is a good book. I'll explain some of the reasons why in further reasons in a little bit. Now, one of the bits I found really interesting was the Orion Syndicate. And I think they're going to feature in some of my campaigns as a result of this, you know, partly reading this. So it tells you a lot about them and how they work, and some, you know, it's a bit about, you know, what's actually going on, the power behind the throne within it, how the syndicate works itself. Then the idea of what science and technology they've got, what their locations of note are, and I actually find, you know, there's only 4 pages in these, but I actually thought, oh, I can use this. This is quite cool. Then you get a bit of the Gorn, not loads, but a significant bit, and then we get into the species. And this is another reason why I think this is a good book for a GM. Why it really favours them. You get some more races. They are a little bit odd, some of the choices. So you get the Aradanan, you get the Benzite, Bullion, Delton, and I'll pick out one in a minute, the Ephrusians. Then we get the Klingons from a playing point of view, and then we get the Ragelians, the Chelon and the Jelna. Bit of an unusual choice to me. Ryzians, Xindi Arboreal. I have to admit, the Xindi Arboreal, the Xindi Primate, the Xindi Reptilian, and the Xindi Insectoid, I was going, what? I don't really get that. And Zakdorn. Now, what this means is you're actually getting quite a lot of species now that you didn't to select your player base from. With this book, you're more than doubling the number of species that people can have, which I think is quite, you know, it's really good. But also, you know, it's the same format as before. You get a bit about the species, a bit about their, you know, the attributes that they get. It's an example value, a trait, a talent, and then or some talents that you can choose, and then names and how they work. And some have got nice pictures, some don't, but they all have that format, which is quite nice. So it's cool. And I think as a GM, that gives you that option to sit down with somebody and plan out their character, or to do it in ahead, pre-gens. Well, then we've got the section of starships of the beta, and these go into you know, the different races that we've already encountered in terms of the empires that they've described. So you've got the Klingon starships, you've got D5 battlecruiser, really important. Raptor, good choice. Katinga battlecruiser, another one that, you know, you look at this and you go, this makes sense. An Egvar warship. These are good choices to have for your Klingons. So if Klingons get involved, that's really nice. And then you've got the Romulans. The Romulans are a little bit scanty, but that's partly because the warbirds are kind of dominant. So you've got Bird of Prey in the 22nd century, and the stats for that. Scout ships, which again I'm definitely going to incorporate, because you suddenly go, yeah, actually that makes sense, and they'd be quite nice to have some of those in there. And I think there was another one. Am I wrong? It would appear I'm wrong. Okay, so there's only the 2. So yeah, I would like to a wee bit more. The Orions stood out to me. Some of these I can't remember seeing in the series, but I may be wrong with that. So you get the Scout Ship, Interceptor, Blackguard, Pleasure Barge, and that's it. But what that means is that you can actually have the Orions as kind of pirate force, or an illegal force running around, which I thought was quite nice and quite useful. Then we go into the Gorn, and the Gorn, we've got a bit more you know, there's a bit of explanation gone into, good bit about the capabilities, good bit about the talents of the ships and stuff like that. So you get the Gorn Raiders and the Gorn Battleship. Interesting because they've not really featured before. Then we get what's quite nice for a number of different, for some of the campaigns you might want to do that are more space based, you need some civilian starships. So you need some freighters, and there's some rules for that and some stats for that. Transports are stats for that, colony ships are stats, and survey ships are stats. And actually I like that because, oh yeah, sorry, in the Vulcan Science Academy vessel, there's stats. So in terms of escort duty, suddenly it becomes a lot more interesting because I can actually pick up all these guys off the shelf. Encounters and adversaries. So again, this favours GM a lot. This is a really nice thing to have up your sleeve. Encounters and adversaries, we've got quite a nice way to do this. And this was a bit that I actually thought really points it firmly in the GM's category. You've got a description of what the Romulan neutral zone is like. You've got encounter seeds, so places to start from and develop. And then you've got a whole host of NPCs that go with this. So you've got, you know, all kinds of different NPCs that you can bring in. So Talshar, saboteurs, and interrogators, and lead scientists. And in and of themselves, as you read these, you start to think, actually, I've got an idea for that. I could use that. And they go from minor to notables to majors. I mean, there's loads. Then the Briar Patch, we have again a bit about a description, and then it goes into some counter seeds, some starting points to make you think about what you could do. And again, the Orions come. You know, you get your NPCs, and again, these trigger off ideas. Tells you a little bit about how to play Orion characters in as NPCs. Sorry. Again. And how you can actually play them as a character, how you can bring them in as characters, Gorn characters, how they can come in, and a bit about, you know, different bits and places that you can do with the Orion, the Briar Patch. A lot of NPCs for that. Klingon border, again we're getting some seeds, again we're getting lots and lots of different NPCs, and I like this. I think this is one of the strengths of it. Then we go in the Shackled and Expanse, and you get a lot more by way of, with this one, a lot more detail about the starbase and the characters you're going to encounter on it, because this is a big feature of the living campaign, and then potential adversaries and what their stakes may be in. And then we go into, something I found very interesting, very useful again, with some components and plots that might work quite well in that context. So overall, this is firmly aimed, I would say, at your GM. If you are a GM, there's some really good ideas for homebrew stuff there that'll give you enough structure and enough ideas to really get your creative juices going and build some really interesting campaigns. Combine that with the command book, and I think you've got, you know, and in it you've got some really nice ideas for campaigns as well. The two of them work well together, but this is the one that's firmly at the GM. Would be my gut instinct. It's a really nice, useful resource for GM. The command book is more aimed at your players who are playing command characters, but I think this is, it's awesome. It's a lovely book. It's very well done. I've used it a little bit and I'm sort of currently homebrewing some stuff and quite enjoying it, and it's a good resource to have. Well presented, useful, and easy to use. So yeah, highly recommend it actually. Have a great evening. Thanks for watching, and please, as ever, like, share, comment and subscribe if you enjoy the channel. Have a great evening.